Are you feeling stuck? Maybe your business is a bit stagnant. You've got some employees that are dragging their feet and seem unmotivated. Or maybe you personally feel a little bit stuck. You're not getting as much done as you'd like. Your habits are slipping. And you're trying to make change, but it's feeling really, really hard. If so, I've got a simple formula that applies to all these different situations. It can really help unlock motivation and drive positive change quickly. And this is the change formula. This was introduced originally by David Gleicher and refined by a couple of different management consultants. And Steve Cady is the one that refined it to the stage that we're going to walk through today. But before we actually get into the equation, change can be really difficult. Trying to motivate somebody else can seem like a really tough task because you have to get into their head, understand their mindset. Maybe it's your own personal motivation. When you're thinking about your own motivation, it can be a really tricky web to pull apart and understand, especially when you're self-sabotaging or there's some resistance to whatever it is that you're trying to do. Teams resist new ideas. Changing big parts of your business can be overwhelming. Whatever it is, this formula applies to all those different situations. And the formula is this: change equals V times D times F times S is greater than R. Very simple. And the same formula applies to all of these different situations. So I'm going to break down what each of these components is so that you can start to use this formula in all these different areas, whether it's an employee, maybe a kid that's being challenging, or your personal habits are slipping on something that's important to you, or your productivity as a business owner. That's a common one that I hear all the time. So the first, as I mentioned, is change. C stands for change, and that's the end outcome or result that you want. So that might be you want a key employee to step up and move into a more senior role and start moving the ball forward on some key projects. On a personal note, it might be that your personal habits around health have slipped and you're trying to get back into shape. It's been really difficult for you. You want to do it, but there's something getting in the way and it hasn't quite clicked in terms of how to address this. So again, change is the desired outcome. V is vision. And vision is a very clear, inspiring picture of the future. This is the destination of what you're driving towards. So it is different in that the desired outcome is the change that needs to happen in order to achieve the vision. But vision kind of sets the destination. D stands for dissatisfaction, and that's dissatisfaction with the current state. So there needs to be enough frustration and unhappiness with the current state that will move you into action to make change. F stands for first steps. You need to have extremely clear, actionable, understandable chunks and steps to move the ball forward, to be in action, to make change. S stands for supports. So that means there needs to be clear supports in order to have follow through on the first steps once vision and dissatisfaction's been addressed. And all of this needs to be greater than resistance. And that resistance might be internal resistance. Often it stems from fear, uncertainty. It depends on the situation. Sometimes it's related to identity and how we get in our own way because we don't see something as possible for us, or it might not be connected to our values. But this is a bit more, this can be a sneakier thing to try and figure out is what is the resistance? And again, no matter what the situation is, whether it's an employee that's struggling and not seemingly motivated, or your own personal habits, or maybe a kid that you have and it's hard to get them to make a change, you can walk through each of these different variables to say, which one was the biggest lever to pull on? Is there clear vision of what we're trying to row towards as a team? If not, maybe you crank up the vision and get more clarity on that, or maybe you have to communicate that better to your team. For dissatisfaction, Maybe you have a team member that is actually really happy with the status quo. If they're really happy with the status quo, it's pretty unlikely that they're going to want to make a big change. Oftentimes, when I'm coaching people, the two that are very obvious that we need to focus on are V and F. So often people don't have a clear vision on what they want for the future. And that's where, as a coach, I can help take them through exercises to bring a lot more clarity to that. But the second one is F, which is first steps. And people get overwhelmed with the next step that they need to take to move the ball forward. They aren't able to chunk things down into small enough bite-sized pieces to start moving that ball forward, taking action that creates a bit of a flywheel of momentum to inevitably get to change. Supports is a new one. That wasn't in the initial equation when I first learned about this equation. And supports might be designated check-ins. They might be support as in like a coach or accountability from an outside person in the organization, personal trainer if it's a health-related goal. Again, it's whatever is going to make sure you get the ball moving forward and you have a pathway to have support in whatever it is that you're trying to make change in. And this is something that is often lacking, and why people come to me as a coach or they go to a personal trainer is they need that level of support. Like, they might understand the first steps, but they don't have the level of accountability that is provided by a coach. Again, these are all very simple, and you can spend a lot of time leveraging them. I guess I didn't hit on resistance as much, but resistance can be a sneaky one. This is how we self-sabotage. This is where often I get into the mental game of things with clients a little bit in terms of how we get in our own way. And oftentimes we have a foot on the gas, being we have a clear vision of what we want. We're driving towards something. We want the change, but then there's something holding us back with resistance. And that can be a blind spot for a lot of people. So being really clear and having a space to make sense of the fears that might be holding you back from making a change, or some of the hidden assumptions or beliefs, that can be really critical. I hope this is applicable. It's very simple and easy to use. So in your personal life, take a step back, take a look at where you're feeling stuck, where you're wanting to make a change, or where somebody in your team or your organization looks like they want to make a change but are struggling. And you can literally just sit down with them, walk them through each of these steps like I just did here, and then ask them where they feel like they need to focus on the most. And I've even walked clients through this and have them scale of 1 to 10. On a scale of 1 to 10, how clear is the vision? Is it a 10? Is it really clear? Is it low? Maybe it's like a 4. And then let's make this a different color. Red. So vision might be a 4. Dissatisfaction is quite high. So it's a 10. They're really dissatisfied with the current state. They really want to make a change. First steps are very unclear. So that's a 2. And supports, they're chatting with you as their manager. So that might be relatively high. They have a clear line of support. That's a 7. So it's clear here that they don't understand the first steps to make a change. They don't have a clear vision of what they want. They just know they're really not happy with the current state. And on top of that, their resistance right now is really high. There's a lot of fear happening, a lot of uncertainty, and they're being very defensive because, again, there's a lot of uncertainty because there's a lack of vision. So as you increase this, so maybe this goes to an 8, that reduces the fear because there's more clarity. That drops to a 6. You can see those numbers start to change. And it doesn't take much. You don't need to do this secretly in the background as a business owner or a manager. This is something that you can just sketch out with somebody. If you have a teenager or your wife and they're wanting to make a change, You literally just sketch it out. You tell them which pieces are the components, which variables are what, so they understand it. And it's pretty intuitive. People will be able to look at it and be like, oh, I see what's missing. And then you just dive in and start to address that. And then you start to make some progress. And then at some point it wavers again and you pull the same thing out again. It's like, okay, what do we need to focus on? So I hope this is helpful. It's been really applicable for me in my coaching practice. And it's a really great way to bring awareness and a great tool for people to move themselves and others through change. Take care and reach out and let me know how you use this.